Hey guys, what's up? How are you all doing? I hope you are doing great and amazing. Book of the day, Come As You Are, the surprising new science that will transform your sex life by Emily Nagoski. This book is a New York Times best-selling book that will answer your questions and all of your questions and enlighten you in more ways than you can ever realize. Okay, so stick with me and let's read it together. Knowledge is power, as you all know, and just let's go. Let's do it.
The value of come as you are. Nobody wants to struggle in silence, but so many women do. Come as you are is the perfect read for any woman who is often confused by her own sexuality. Perhaps she is worried that her anatomy isn't normal, or is terrified about the fact that she simply doesn't want sex as much as her partner. The biggest pat on the back you can imagine, the realization for a woman that she is normal, and she is normal because she's different. Come As You Are is perfect for helping empower women to grab hold of their own sexuality and use it in their own special way. Wouldn't it be boring if every woman was the same? Why would anyone want to be the same as anyone else anyway? Be different, embrace it, and learn how to understand needs in order to enjoy sex, without worrying about what is supposedly normal. Who gets to decide what is normal anyway? Nobody. Women need to learn how their bodies work, what sexuality really is, and use all the hints and tips in this book to develop their own sexuality to the point where they're true as orgasmic as they could ever hope to be. If men can do it, surely women can do it just as easily. Emily Nagoski has sex-related questions thrown at her on an almost daily basis. The stories and questions she has heard over the years have to lead her to one very truthful realization: men and women are similar in many ways but wildly different in others. Women often worry whether they're normal or not, having heard something on TV or read something in a magazine that has to lead them to wonder whether they're broken, worrying that they're never going to have a fulfilling sex life. The problem is, TV and magazines actually lie to us in so many ways. We see women having easy orgasms on TV, but in reality only 30% of women orgasm with intercourse. The rest? Either struggle or never come via intercourse at all. Women worry about this because of what society tells them. Many years ago, medicine told the world that sex for women was the same as for men, only slightly less mind-blowing. Just because men have orgasms very reliably, it was assumed women can too. Huge myth. This leads many women to panic because it's not happening easily for them. I am done living in a world where women are lied to about their bodies, where women are objects of sexual desire but not subjects of sexual pleasure, where sex is used as a weapon against women, and where women believe their bodies are broken, simply because those bodies are not male. You see, both men and women experience desire, arousal, and orgasm, but the route towards that final big O, if that destination is ever reached, is totally different, and works in completely different ways. Understanding their own personal route gives women the power to understand their own sexuality. Knowledge is power. The quick anatomy lesson everyone needs. Most women have grabbed a hand mirror and tried to have a look at what lies between their legs before, but few actually know the names for each particular part. For instance, the vagina isn't what most people assume it to be, it's actually the vulva. Knowing what part is where is a good starting point for any woman who wants to explore her sexuality and find out what rocks her own world. For starters, the outer genitalia is the vulva, not the vagina. The inner part, the reproductive canal, is actually the vagina. Most women come to learn about their own genitalia via masturbation, and everyone does this differently. In medieval times, the female genitalia was referred to as pudendum. This word came from the Latin term for to be ashamed. So, from the earliest point in history, women were taught to be ashamed of their genitalia. This needs to stop. Why? Because the female genitalia and the male genitalia are not that different, they're simply either inside or outside. Both sets of genitalia come from the same origin, it's simply a blast of hormones at around 6 weeks gestation which informs whether a baby will become male or female. For instance, the female clitoris is the equivalent of the head of the male penis. Packed with nerve endings and a veritable feast of pleasure. The problem? Many women don't know where it is, and even fewer men. In addition, the female version of the male scrotum is the outer labia. So, why were female genitalia referred to as something to be ashamed of, when they really come from the same place as male genitalia? Ms. Nagoski urges women to look at their genitalia and work out where everything is. Knowing this will hand them their own sexual power. Kicking out the hymen myth. Contrary to popular belief, the hymen doesn't differentiate between a woman who is a virgin and one who isn't. This is because not all women are born with a hymen in the first place, and some can be so thin that they break with something as simple as riding a bike. If in place, the hymen doesn't break and stayed that way for the rest of a woman's life, it atrophies and remains but isn't visible to the eye after a few years. There is no real use for the hymen, no necessity or otherwise, it's simply the case that some women have one, some don't, some have strong ones, some have fragile ones, but none of it really matters because it doesn't dictate anything about the quality of a woman's sex life. The problem is that certain cultures look for the hymen as proof of a woman's virginity, perhaps before marriage. If that woman was never born with a hymen, or perhaps it broke during their earlier years when they were riding a bike or horse riding, that woman can be personally vilified and her reputation is broken forever. Learning to understand the hymen and its relative unimportance is vital in terms of breaking down the stigma. The 4 stages of sex for a woman. Every woman experiences sex slightly differently, and the things which arouse them are different too. There is no one-size-fits-all answer to any of this, and a little later in the book, Emily Nagoski talks about the fact that the brain and body aren't always in correlation. On each side of the vagina, there is a gland called the Bartholin's gland. During arousal, it is this gland that secretes fluid and causes a woman to become wet. Many people don't realize it, but men also experience a similar type of wetness, pre-ejaculate fluid, which is secreted by the Cowper's gland. Despite that, we say that a woman gets wet and a man gets hard. The thing is, both get wet, and both get hard. A woman's clitoris becomes hardened during arousal, just like the penis. During the lead up to sex, or during arousal in general, there are 4 main stages which happen to a woman. Excitement. At this stage the heart rate quickens, the blood pressure rises, and the vagina becomes lubricated. The breasts swell a little and the nipples harden. Plateau. During this stage, the vagina swells and opens up, lubrication increases and she experiences contractions of the muscles deep inside the vagina. Her breathing might also turn into panting at this stage. Orgasm. Not all women reach this stage, but when it occurs, the Kegel muscles contract, along with the anus and the urethra. Her breathing is fast and her heart rate rapid. Sexual tension is released. Resolution. The chilled out, relaxed stage. Breathing, heart rate and everything else turns to normal. It all comes down to the brain. For many years, pharmacists have attempted to develop the female version of Viagra, allowing women to simply take a pill and then suddenly feel aroused and to want to have sex. This tablet still hasn't been developed. For many women, it isn't only about what is going on during arousal that causes them to want sex, but what is going on inside their brains too. Perhaps more so than men, women need to feel in the right place for sex. That means they need to feel good about their body, they need to trust the person, and the surroundings have to be right. This isn't correct all the time, but both men and women are governed by either SES or CIS. SES, Sexual Excitation System. Notices things which cause sexual excitement. CIS, Sexual Inhibition System. Notices threats and distractions. Those who are more toward the SES side of the scale, are more likely to find arousal and sex easier. If however those who are more toward the CIS side find they're slamming on the brakes during sex and worrying, stressing, or thinking of other things, which diminishes their arousal and makes the whole thing that much harder. Whilst it is possible to change the CIS or SES level within a person, everyone is born either more toward one side than the other overall. Generally speaking, men are more SES, whereas women have sensitive brakes, i.e. they're more CIS. The key to changing this is to understand what the CIS or SES mechanism best responds to and either does less of it or more of it accordingly. Emotional or not, the emotional brain controls a woman's sex life. A recent survey examined the factors that women found most prominent in terms of sexual arousal. It's no surprise that most of them were linked to love, feeling secure, security, and commitment. When a woman feels secure in her relationship and happy with her partner, she is able to relax, avoid negative thoughts, and may even be more open to trying new things. As a result, her sexual confidence increases, but also the confidence she has in herself. Most women need to experience a mixture of both romantic and erotic sexual cues in order to feel like they want sex, but none of this is any use if that woman doesn't feel good about her own body in the first place. Some women also worry about their reputation, the unfair label of being called a slut. Emotions are tunnels. You have to go all the way through the darkness to get to the light at the end. With this in mind, a woman's external circumstances, e.g. the situation going on around her, and the way she is thinking, her internal brain, dictates whether she is responsive to sexual arousal or not. All of this depends upon perception. Ms. Nagoski highlights the example of being tickled. If that person is in a good mood, they will probably find the tickling funny, maybe even pleasurable, and it may lead towards arousal. However, if they're angry with the person doing the tickling, they're more likely to feel even more annoyed by the tickling. In this case, the sensation is exactly the same, it is the perception of the sensation which alters it. For this reason, the brain and emotions are the keys to sexual desire and arousal more than the genitals themselves. How stress and love impact the type of sex you have. There are two main situations that can affect how responsive a woman is to sexual arousal: love and stress. Both have totally different reactions. Love will make you feel safe, but stress will make you feel in danger. For that reason, stress is not at all sexy. A woman who is stressed will not want sex and is more likely to freeze or feel under pressure. On the other hand, a woman in love is more likely to feel safe and secure with her partner and is, therefore, more likely to experience a greater amount of sexual enjoyment. Love helps you attach, but stress makes you run away and deal with threats in a very definite way. It's no surprise that a woman who is attached to her partner in a healthy way, e.g. she is in love, is more likely to experience better sex in terms of arousal, orgasm, and enjoyment. To back that up, a 2012 survey found that couples in healthy and secure relationships had better sex overall. Sex is an attachment behavior, reinforcing the social bond between adults. Sometimes it takes the form of passionate, joyful sex between people who are falling in love with each other. Sometimes it takes the form of desperate, grasping sex between people whose attachment is threatened. Do culture and society affect what sex means to women? Both men and women are sold the idea of a sex-positive world, but the truth is the opposite. Women are made to believe that they are dirty or not enough, and whilst they may not believe it entirely, it is still there in the background of their mind, nagging away and causing their brain to slam on the brakes of sexual enjoyment. Women are also extremely self-critical. Society tells women to criticize themselves and never to celebrate themselves. To do so brings a huge amount of judgment. It's almost impossible to be sexually confident and positive when the weight of self-criticism is dragging a woman down. Both men and women think they know a lot about sex, but they only know what society wants them to know. The messages aren't particularly backed up by facts and statistics, and instead, they're backed up by ideas and opinions. Women are told they're a slut if they enjoy sex, but that's entirely wrong. All of these false ideas can drastically reduce the enjoyment a woman has in her sex life and also in how she sees herself individually. All women are beautiful and should believe it. Women rarely tell themselves that they're beautiful. For instance, babies are born with fat, they're chubby and everyone coos over them and says they're beautiful. So, why is it socially unacceptable for women to have even a tiny bit of fat? Surely it's the same thing? Women rarely accept themselves as they are, but that has to change. A 2012 review that covered 20 years found that the links between body image and every part of sex, such as orgasms, frequency of sex, desire, and self-esteem, were extremely strong. Put simply, when a woman doesn't accept herself as she is damaging her own sexual pleasure. The answer? Turn everything on its head and replace negativity with positivity, be kind rather than critical, and accept rather than push away. Ms. Nagoski suggests a woman should stand in front of a mirror and take off all her clothes, really looking at what she sees. She should then make a list of the things she likes, ignoring the things she doesn't. This should be repeated until positivity is the first way of thinking that springs to mind. Why female genital reactions don't tell the whole story. Most people assume that when a woman is wet, she is ready for sex. That is actually not true. Whilst men get hard when they are aroused and ready for sex, women's genitalia can actually say one thing, but mean another. A woman may be lubricated, but her mind might be elsewhere. This is called arousal non-concordance. This covers the relationship between the brain and the genitals. The brain notices everything around it and it's trying to work out whether it's a threat or whether it's something it likes. On the other hand, the genitals notice things that are supposed to be sexually arousing and instantly think about sex. With that, the genitals start to get ready for sex, but the brain hasn't caught up yet or isn't going to. That is why some women are wet but don't want to have sex, and could also be why some people have a sexual reaction to something which the brain is very firmly telling it isn't okay. The best way to tell whether a woman is actually aroused isn't by noticing what her genitals are doing, but instead looking for non-verbal signs such as shallow breathing and flushed cheeks, and by listening to the words she is saying. Partners need to be mindful of this, in order to avoid problems and to stop their wife-girlfriend from feeling pressured. In search of the Big O. Orgasm doesn't just involve the genitals, but also the brain. It is a release of sexual tension, but that tension doesn't just build up inside the vagina, it also builds up inside the mind. In order to have more orgasms, women need to try and reduce their sexual breaks and try and find emotional safety. For instance, feeling safe with a partner and trusting them completely will allow a woman to relax and therefore feel more aroused as a result. Ms. Nagoski also suggests trying lube, as this has been known to drastically increase the value of a woman's sex life. Not only does lube make sex feel better, it also reduces the chances of pain and friction, two things which some women fear and therefore causes them to slam on their sexual reaction brakes. It's also important to increase the number of things that a woman finds sexually arousing, increasing stimuli to increase the chances of desire. It takes time, but eventually, it is possible to turn off the brakes and be more sexually responsive, naturally. Most women don't orgasm via intercourse alone and require some kind of clitoral stimulation. Changing positions to ensure the clitoris gets a look is a good idea, but women should also feel comfortable talking to their partner about what they like, in order to reach the special Big O much easier. Despite that, it isn't always the destination which should be the goal. Conclusion. Sex for men and women is totally different. Despite that, women deserve to enjoy their sex lives just as much as men. Understanding the female anatomy and how it works gives empowerment to women and allows them to discover their own likes and dislikes. It's also important to reach a place in life which isn't influenced by society and cultural views on the female body and sex. Women are not dirty if they enjoy sex, and they're not frigid if they're not responding to every single sexual stimulus out there either. Every woman is different, every woman is beautiful, and every woman needs to understand both of those things in order to unlock her own sexual power. 1. Take off all your clothes and stand in front of the mirror. Look at the things you like about yourself, avoiding the things you don't like. Make a list and do it daily. 2. Try adding lube into your sex life. 3. Be aware of your sexual breaks, i.e. the things which cause you to feel less than aroused. Then, do your best to reduce them and increase the number of things which cause you to feel desire.
Okay, guys, that's it. We finished the book. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really good for women, okay, and, understanding the sex life for women. So I hope you enjoyed the book. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Love you all.